Hi there YouTube, Sad Womble here. I thought I would let you guys know my thoughts about International Women's Day 2017, coming as it does hot on the heels of the protesting of President Trump's inauguration, well, one day after, which apparently was nothing to do with it, it was just a coincidence, but we all know the truth. Right, well, International Women's Day 2017. This has been widely touted as another example of how the sisterhood can come together and show the power of women. And they are suggesting that all women should basically stop for the day. Women, don't go shopping, don't go to work, don't do anything that's work-related, and don't do anything that's not work-related. Basically, put your feet up for a day and just show how much you are needed. Now, this is a very interesting concept because if you think about it, the thing that women are constantly trying to say is how important they are in society. But as people such as myself, who have a modicum of logic about them, would also like to point out, yes, women are important in society. We would rather they concentrated on what women, do best, which is what they were biologically designed for. But if they want to go out and do work too, that's fine. Ooh, sexist comment there. Ooh, dear. Sorry, Womble, what a nasty person I am. However, women are also in the workplace. This is true. However, most women are in the workplace in the world of retail and the services on the top of society, services that aren't really vital to the society as a whole. Women don't dig ditches, women don't keep the lights on, women don't build houses. A few do, not all women and all that. But on the whole, if you literally wiped out women completely, society would carry on. Obviously, it wouldn't regenerate itself because, there'd be no more babies. But for probably 10 years, we would be absolutely fine because factories would still produce things. And, to misquote a little bit of Douglas Adams, when they had the Goldfinch and Ark fleet, anyone who knows Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, they sent the ship B off with all the people people who didn't really do anything. They were just over the top, telephone sanitizers and such. And the world carried on just fine until everyone died of a particularly dirty telephone, which is the equivalent of all women disappearing, would be if, no more babies. Now, absolutely. Now, this is the unique fact that women have. They can make children. Everything else men can do and used to do and still do. So like I say, drainage systems will still go ahead, houses will still be built on this one day. The danger women have on this International Women's Day is actually the opposite of what they think they're going to achieve. What they are going to achieve is to prove that on the whole, we don't need them as a society, because the only things that are going to stop, maybe restaurants are going to have problems because a lot of women are involved in restaurant work, a lot of women are involved in retail work. So retail shops are going to have a problem, food shops are going to have a problem, and that kind of stuff. Everything that's on the top of society, stuff that actually makes society operate, not really going to have an issue. Now, the other thing that they're going to do, and this is I think the deeper issue, is if they do this and it happens in any, large amount, this is going to show the powers that be that actually it's not actually a good idea to employ women, because they're likely to just go on strike willy-nilly like this, en masse. Men don't tend to strike en masse. You might get the miners striking or the police striking or, all the farmers striking. But on the whole, every man in the country doesn't go, right, I'm not going to work for it now. We don't do that. It doesn't happen. I don't think men would be interested in doing that. So all this is actually doing is saying to employers, do you know what? If you employ women, they might walk away at a moment's notice. And of course, this is already true because women can get pregnant at a moment's notice. I used to work in a company which was desperately keen to employ women. It it was one of the STEM companies. It was desperate to employ women. We had ideas and policies and schemes to get as many women in the workplace as possible. And at one point, I do work in an office that was predominantly men, obviously by definition, based on what I've just said. But we had a big recruitment drive, and we got about sort of 10 or 15 women into our office that had about 150 men in it. So yes, a small fraction, I grant you. But within about 6 months to a year, they started to have children. And then some of them would have a child come back for a few weeks after their entire year off, and they'd have another child. And I mean, at the time of recording this, out of about the 15 or 20 women that we had, I think there's like 3 left, because they have left either because they enjoyed being a mother, or they decided that this sort of work wasn't for them and they've gone to do something else, or they've gone part-time. And again, what does that say? Well, that says to the employers, you know what, you've got all these fancy ideas about employing more women, says the women, because we can do it, say the women. But the moment you give them that chance, they just decide, oh, well, yeah, I know we wanted to do it, but actually we prefer to be mothers. And this is the danger of any sort of action in International Women's Day. They just prove that, yes, it's going to be, if every single woman stopped working, it's going to be an inconvenience. This is true. You know, I'm not going to be able to potentially buy anything that day. That's possible. There may be issues of things that stop because they are predominantly female orientated. But ironically, things that are predominantly female orientated tend to be things that predominantly females are interested in. Okay, let's close all the clothes shops for a day. Who's that going to hurt? It's not going to hurt men. Let's close all the schools for a day because all the teachers are female. Well, do you know what? It'd be really handy to, bit of equality, it'd be really handy to have men back as teachers, because boys need a strong sense of discipline and things, and a good role model, and there's so many women in teachers. So actually it would be quite good to do that, because it would show how gynocentric teachings become. And it will just show that women only hurt themselves. Every time they try and prove something, all they do is prove either that we don't need them, or that it's not a good idea to actually employ them, because they'll pull stunts like this and bring us to a halt. What you actually want is good, dependable people who will just do as they are told and work in the machine. A machine is only as good as its cogs. And if the cogs suddenly decide to up sticks and go and work in another machine, you've got a problem. On the whole, men, we're very focused. We're a little bit basic like that, I will admit. You give us a task, you give us a time limit to do that task, and we'll do it. We're focused. It's how we are wired. That's why we're so good at what we do, because we get very focused on our mission. Women are, again, their strength is that apparently their mental process is very scattered. They can think about 400 different things at once. But of course, they're not thinking deeply about those 400 things. So which makes them much better at multitasking. But my point being that, men can do this stuff. And also, if it's going to be about family and things like that, if all the women are suddenly going to go, we're not going to do any work today, okay, lads, it's down to you to look after the kids. Well, what happens if they manage to look after the kids successfully? What does that say? Well, that then destroys the narrative that the feminists and the women are always putting ahead, that says men are useless, men can't look after children, the world will just collapse. Well, what if it doesn't? This is the kind of thing you don't pull the pin on. If you pull the pin on something that says we as women are going to become militant, we are going to prove that we are needed. If you do that, and then it turns out that the world still spins, you've kind of blown it for yourself. Now, this sort of thing can work, but it only ever works in a very focused manner. If all the army went on strike, you would have a problem. If all the police went on strike, you would have a problem. But it has to be an entire sector. If every shop in the country closed for a day, the world would stop, because you couldn't buy food, you couldn't do it. If all the electricity workers went on strike. But this is the point. They're not targeting it. By just targeting it at a demographic, aka women, all they are doing is running the risk of proving that actually we can live without them. And whilst we might not want to live without them, it will give people the realisation that actually all these people, we're making allowances for them, we're doing things for them, we're making their lives easier, and they're not only not grateful, actually they're not as important as they're making out.